Good morning. Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Robert McNeely. It is a glorious, but I'm sure very chilly day in your neck of the woods as you see a live look of the federal city from the Washington National Monument, one of my favorites out there in Washington, D.C. On a bright, sunshiny day, it's sunny and shiny here right in Auburn, Alabama, but it is brisk out there. So feel free to send in your photos from around the country in your neck of the woods. Feedback at rsbn.tv. If you wish to opine, we'll talk about what the First Lady is doing today with AI, also the rural healthcare breakdown, as we will see a roundtable scheduled for 60 minutes from now with President Trump after he enjoyed some time with those Florida Panthers, once again getting that golden hockey stick and another jersey from the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. In the meantime, we had an exclusive interview this week with Senator Tommy Tuberville, the coach, breaking down not only what's going to happen Monday with the College Football National Championship, but some very important items he's worked on this week, from the transgender case taking place in oral arguments this week, joining Riley Gaines, who has been making the rounds, and the new media seat holder yesterday at the press briefing with White House superstar Caroline Leavitt. And also a plethora of other things he's been working on, including what he's talked about on the Senate floor. So we'll go to that interview with the good senator and former coach of the Auburn Tigers, Tommy Tuberville. Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. Senator Tommy Tuberville from the Yellowhammer State of Alabama, and now officially a candidate for governor. Thank you for joining us, Senator. I found it so funny in the oral arguments about, is this a man? Is this a woman? I thought biological science has decided this, but you joined Riley Gaines and some fellow congressmen and congresswomen out there defending the dignity of these women who've been through so much, especially these college athletes who have had to put up with so much garbage inside and outside of their locker rooms.
Yeah, we've got so many problems in our country and around the world, and we're worried about how to define a man and a woman. It makes no sense to me. For 5 years that I've been on the Hill as a senator, I've had 3 bills on the Senate floor. I've not got one Democrat to vote for it. And I've asked women, especially the women that are senators, don't you have daughters and granddaughters? I mean, do you want them dressing in the same dressing rooms and having showers with other boys? And of course, they have no answer for that. All they try to do is they try to dance around it like they do everything else up here. That doesn't make sense. But this is one that just, I mean, it's to me, it's a form of mental illness. If you can't figure out whether you're a man or a woman, or if you want to compete against women and you're a man and have an unfair advantage, something's got to be wrong with you.
And that's my question, Senator, because I'm looking at all of this and thinking that this is an issue that's not Republican or Democrat. This is an issue about protecting women's rights truly in public and private affairs. And do the Democrats on the Hill, do your colleagues actually see this as an electoral advantage? Because people joke around with common sense that it's an 80-20 issue, but really it's 90-10. I mean, it just doesn't seem like anyone that has children who are daughters that would be wanting to back this up.
Yeah. I think people now are starting to realize what, as Republicans and as people that love this country, United States of America, what we deal with up here all the time. I mean, if you can't distinguish between a man and a woman, they try to convince people, by the way, that men can have babies. I mean, it can't get any more stupid than that. And so we fight a lot of battles up here, a lot of them about money and a lot of them about, funding and health care and the border and all that. But sometimes you can look at it and go, well, that's just their opinion. There shouldn't even be an opinion here because it's about good versus evil, and it's about right and wrong. And if you can't distinguish between right and wrong, when men, it is unfair to play against women sports and take away advantages and scholarships and playing time and destroy a team atmosphere, there's something wrong with you.
And it's absolutely as well a security issue and a safety issue, as we saw with the volleyball situation, that high schooler who lost her eyesight as a result of having a ball slapped directly at her from a biological man. So we'll keep diving into this, and I think it should be a 9-0 Supreme Court decision come June, but we might see, based on the Biden appointment of Ketanji Brown Jackson, that it might go 8-1, but we'll see there as the summer comes. You also took to the Senate floor to declare that the enemy is now inside the gates when it comes to radical Islam and the absolute insanity of New York Governor Kathy Hochul lighting up the World Trade Center in all of New York City after the inauguration of Mayor Mamdani for solidarity with Islamism. Can you dive into that statement and these statements you made on the Senate floor? Because I think it brings a lot to the light that people might not be aware of when it comes to radical Islamic terrorism.
Well, you should learn by example. Okay. I was a football coach, and if somebody had a very good play that worked, obviously we put it in. We try to make it work. Same thing with defense. And you learn by experience and by example. Folks, we need to look at what's happened to Europe. Our allies across the big pond have allowed immigration for the last 10, 15 years, mass immigration, into most of the countries, Italy, France, Germany, the UK, and a lot of others. And they just allowed it to say, oh, yeah, we're going to accept everybody to come in. And most of them are Muslim. And listen, I got nothing against Muslims, and if they want to come here and assimilate, I'm all for it. But they didn't do that in Europe. They have basically taken over the cities with their mayors, and they have a big voting bloc now, and they're causing all kind of problems. Rape, the rape has gone out the roof because Muslim men believe that rape is justified. And now they're coming over here and doing the same thing and chanting death to America. They're teaching Sharia law, which is just directly opposite of the Constitution. And that Mandami the other day, he put his hand on the Quran, which is the Bible of the Muslim faith, basically. And the Quran basically states, kill all infidels. Now, wait a minute. Again, this country was built on immigration, and we want people to come here. But you go by our laws, our constitutions. You can go by any religion you want, but this is not a religion. This is a cult. This is a cult that believes that we're going to grow our cult and we're going to take over all the other religions in the United States of America, and then we will eventually take over the country. And so that's the direction we're headed. And as I said in my speech yesterday, the enemy is not at the gate. They're inside the gate, and they're here. And if we don't wake up and start understanding what's happened to Europe is going to happen here in the United States of America, because we feel like that, oh, this is not really going to affect us. No, it's affecting us right now, and it's going to affect us in the near future, and it's going to get worse.
Yes, the implementation of Sharia law could easily upend our republic and our Constitution and the Western world as we've seen it in Europe, especially in Germany right now. What an absolute disaster happening to that once great nation. And Senator, this week, President Trump and your colleagues there in the Oval Office and cabinet members from Secretary Kennedy's to Secretary Brooke Rollins, Dr. Ben Carson as well, allowing 2% and whole milk back into classrooms across the country. Huge for our farmers from Butler, Pennsylvania, down to Midland, Texas, all the way up to the great Auburn, California, although we're home here to Auburn, Alabama at Right Side Broadcasting Network. What say you as you look to be the next governor of the Yellowhammer State? Because there's a lot of farms right here in Alabama. And how will this bill signing and implementation of common sense, as Howard Lutnick put it, make a big difference for those Alabamians?
Well, it goes back to show you how our country has been taken over by the food manufacturers. And what does that mean? It means that we have been taught over the years, for instance, you can't eat butter. Butter is not really good for you. You need to eat margarine, okay? Butter is too much fat and it causes health problems. Well, the same thing with milk. Oh, you can't drink whole milk. You got to drink skim milk or non-fat milk. And let's don't give that protein to our kids. Let's make sure that they're healthy. Well, that was directly opposite of what should have been taught. And thank goodness to Robert Kennedy and Brooke Rollins and all the people involved. They're readjusting our food pyramid. And if you look at it, what they were telling us to eat, it's exactly the opposite of what we should be eating. And it's just unfortunate. But I'm glad to see President Trump step in and say, listen, in our schools now, we need to have whole milk. Obviously, you give the option if you want to have kids, don't need or want whole milk, you don't feed them that. But it's going to be great for our farmers. I'd say our farmers are really been hammered by the Biden administration for the 4 years, and I'm on the Ag Committee. I see all the statistics, and what happened when Joe Biden came into office, they attacked our farmers. They wanted all the food, all the milk, everything that's grown and sold in our grocery stores. They don't want it to be produced in the United States because they think that it is killing our climate. And so we're going to buy everything out of the country, which makes no sense. So what happened? We lost 150,000 farms. Folks, listen to me, 150,000 farms that the Democrats and the Biden administration just ran out of this country, put under, bankrupt, and now President Trump's having to put tariffs on people sending stuff in so our farmers can readjust and get back into the game. And so it's just, we are a country that used to produce everything. And the Democrats don't want to produce anything. They want to ship it out. President Trump wants America to have American made, and that's the direction we headed. And milk is just one of those products.
Now, will this be central to your campaign for governor? Because we have certain situations where Alabama is the 7th poorest state in the nation, but we've seen a lot of cooperation with those state governments that want to work with this administration. And President Trump has said, Republican and Democrat, independent to green to libertarian, whatever it is, I'm willing to pick up the phone. And he proved that before Mayor Mamdani took office with inviting him to the Oval Office to see where they can work on specific items regardless of ideology. What do you hope to accomplish as the next governor of Alabama?
Yeah, I've been around President Trump now 5 or 6 years and had a lot of discussions with him. And he's all about America. He's all about workers. And, he's employed people forever. And he knows how to build things. And so, that's what I appreciate about him. He's not a politician. He's not a lawyer. He understands the economy. But, the big thing is he has a plan, and a plan to get America back first again in everything. And we're not doing that. Now, we'll do the same thing when I'm governor of the state of Alabama, is we're going to focus on 10, 12 things. And those 10 or 12 things, when we make progress in that and make those better, it makes everything around it better. And, I learned a lot of that from President Trump. But again, you got to, the first thing you do is identify, the things that need to be enhanced. And that's what we're doing right now. We've got a primary in May, and then we'll have the general election in November next year. If we do win, I'll promise you we will be ready. We will know what we need to work on, what will be the priorities, will it be education, infrastructure, all the things that go along with workforce development, work with small businesses. All those are going to be intact. But the main thing is you've got to make your weak points stronger and get them to a certain level. And it's no different coaching football. I mean, if you're weak on the offensive line, you've got to practice those guys a lot harder, and you got to work with them harder. Same thing in politics. If your healthcare needs work, if your rural health hospitals are going under, you have got to put a lot of emphasis on that. So that's what we'll do. And I'm not doing this to be governor, so to speak. I want to go in and help because I see the problems, and you got to put a good coaching staff together. We'll do that, and it's called your cabinet, and we'll hit the ground running, and we'll do a lot of background work between now and next year.
Well, and you've definitely built up that tenure in the United States Senate. As you see the final year of your service as a United States Senator, do you have any concerns about Republicans seemingly crossing the aisle on the War Powers Act. And how do you see that relating potentially to Greenland and what President Trump is looking to do in acquiring that to protect the northern Atlantic waters? As we know, as shared by the administration, there are Russian and Chinese ships that patrol that area, and I'm sure involved in not only espionage, but trying to implement their fortitude and their power near and around our hemisphere. Do you see this as, I guess, somewhat of the Don Roe doctrine, as the president has aptly coined it?
Well, President Trump is part of his agenda. And again, I've talked to him about it a lot over the years and that I've known him, and playing golf, by the way. He talked a lot of politics playing golf. And his main concern when he was coming back into office was we have to make sure that our hemisphere is taken care of. That's from all the way down to the Argentina, all the way up through Canada, Alaska, through the Arctic, and through Greenland. Now, this War Powers Act, I'm confused with a lot of my colleagues. Now, we've got a bunch of people up here on both sides of the aisle. Some Republicans, they're chicken littles. What does that mean? The sky is falling all the time. Oh my God, we can't do this. We can't do that. They over calculate everything. We did not go to war with Venezuela. What did we do? We went into Venezuela and we arrested a guy that had a charge against him. He is not the president of the country. He's the false dictator of the country. And there was a bounty on his head put on there by Joe Biden. And so President Trump says, we're going to bring this guy to trial. He does not need to be the dictator. Let's free the people of Venezuela. And so he sent in a special forces group. They did an outstanding job and freed the Venezuelans. And then he's in jail. Now, we got people up there, oh, you can't do that. Well, it's not war. We don't have people on the ground. I can understand if we're going to send in, troops and we're going to fight, ground fight and all that, it's different. But so we got a lot of people up here that just blow everything up. Now, Greenland is a country that's supposedly controlled by Denmark. And their foreign minister was up here today. I don't think the conversation went well with President Trump because he doesn't take no for an answer very well. But there will be a lot of conversations about what's going to happen in Greenland. As you said, Chinese, the Russians, a lot of people involved there. We got to make sure we have national security on our northern front.
No question about that, as I was one to cover local politics and turn international diplomacy all the way up in Anchorage, Alaska. And Seward's Folly, as I mentioned it before, in the Lincoln administration really became crucial, not only in World War II to the Pacific Command and the fleet, but throughout the Cold War. So it makes us an Arctic nation. And I think when people see that map from the top of the Earth, they realize, oh my goodness, this is not far to launch certain missiles and rockets in a certain direction, and all of a sudden you cross continents. Now, Senator Tuberville, I have to ask you to put on that coach hat one more time, as we always enjoy robust discussions with you. Monday, January 19th, is college football playoff national championship. Indiana Hoosiers, a Cinderella story, but I believe for the first time they have to go through what's going to be a home game for the University of Miami Hurricane. What are your takes on the big matchup come Monday night?
Yeah, I watched a lot of football, and I was at the game in Atlanta at the Peach Bowl, and I was there fired up about being a good football game. And after the first play, I told my wife, we probably won't be here after halftime, because after they threw that interception, you could just took it was like popping a balloon. Oregon looked like they were just dysfunctional. But I tell you, Indiana's got a very, very good football team. They don't make mistakes. I mean, they don't fumble. They hadn't fumbled a ball. I think they had the 1,000th play in that game where they did not have a fumble. The 1,000th. I mean, that's almost unheard of. So if you don't have turnovers and your quarterback is very accurate like he is, who won the Heisman Trophy, you got a great chance. But they don't have a lot of weak points. Here's the deal, though. They're going to Miami. I coached there 10 years. I was on 3 national championship teams there. I never lost a game in Miami when I was coaching in Miami. And why was that? Number one, we were very good. We had a lot of good players. They have good players at Miami this year. Here's their problem. When Indiana goes down to play, it's hard to get used to that heat and humidity. If it is 75, 80 degrees, they better win the first half because Miami will you win that second half, I promise you. So there's a big point there that I don't think that they really understand of what they're getting into. Again, it might be cool. It might be 50 degrees and they might get lucky. But if it's a normal Miami winter weather at kickoff time, which will probably be around 7 o'clock Eastern time, there's going to be humidity and heat in the air. They're lucky it's not during the day, which would be a disaster for them. But I think that Miami's got a great opportunity because of the home field advantage. But I tell you, I like the quarterback a lot better. And the kid at Georgia that was at Georgia now that's at Miami playing quarterback. By the way, his 7th year, which is unheard of. He's a good quarterback, but not like this kid at Indiana. He is accurate, and if they don't turn the ball over, they'll probably win the game.
Yes, an exciting game. Can't wait to watch it. And that open stadium there at Hard Rock should make it even more fun. United States Senator Tommy Tuberville, thank you for joining us. Candidate for governor of Alabama. We look forward to seeing you again on the right side of history, and Godspeed, and talk to you very soon, sir.
Thank you. God bless America.
allfamilypharmacy.com/biohacking. They are changing the way traditional pharmacies and online pharmacies get you access to life-saving medications in real time. And right now you can go to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Use code RSBN10. That is RSBN10 for 10% off right now. It's ivermectin, antibiotics, antivirals, maintenance medications, and much, much, much more. Just scan that QR code there. Here's the thing about the barriers found in traditional healthcare. The problem being that you have situations where some of these pharmacies just simply do not prescribe these life-saving medications and these great biohacking sciences like NAD+, like the Maryland family, also methylene blue, so that you can advance in your years and not grow old. It's a really amazing thing to see all this science. In case you missed it, scrub back to yesterday's morning coverage. Had a great interview with Michael Kunzler, the outstanding co-owner of this fine organization. Once again, allfamilypharmacy.com/biohacking. It's code RSBN30, so 30% off of these biohacking products. And then in addition to all of that, over 300 plus essential medications, from maintenance medications to emergency medical kits, all there at allfamilypharmacy.com/biohacking. This is how it works. You don't need a you need a pharmaceutical note, but you do not need insurance. So no red tape, no bureaucracy. Gets sent right over to a U.S. licensed doctor who reviews that order and sends it right back to your door within a matter of days. The model is especially helpful for those who want convenience and are away from the hassle of the corporate pharmaceutical movement. So they're doing some amazing things over at All Family Pharmacy. And again, that's allfamilypharmacy.com/biohacking, code RSBN30 for that 30% off now. Go ahead and scan that QR code. Also, thank you to Kalshi.com/RSBN. Who do you think will win on Monday? Is it the Indiana Hoosiers with their Cinderella story, or those Miami Hurricanes down, which will be a home field advantage for them at the Hard Rock, the first time in the modern college football era where the championship played as a home game for one of the teams? And guess who will be there? President Donald Trump will be visiting Miami, Florida. So he will set sail via Air Force One this afternoon, head down to West Palm Beach, and be sure to catch that afternoon coverage as he will be honored in a very special way. And then also spend the weekend at Mar-a-Lago, the Southern White House, with an important meeting, actually, with Slovenian president. And with that, also going to the national championship on Monday. We look forward to that. Kalshi.com/RSBN. You can trade and bet on all of those things there as we await the president for this rural roundtable. And you've heard from Democrats that he allegedly was not going to fund these rural health cares, but these hospitals as well. But we've seen that throughout the administration with this great health care bill that President Trump wants to push forward. But of course, some of the big items in the news today, going to Truth Social, President Trump focused on the future of Venezuela, with Maria Corina Machado visiting him at the White House yesterday. President Trump stating with cut number 1, Mr. Producer, it's my great honor to meet Maria Corina Machado of Venezuela today. She's a wonderful woman who has been through so much. Maria presented me with her Nobel Peace Prize for the work I have done. Such a wonderful gesture of mutual respect. Thank you, Maria. Really a touching moment, no question about that. And I'm seeing this trend right now on Instagram, on Facebook, social media sites, going back to 2016 and sharing your pictures. Well, if we rewind to 2016 and what was happening there, President Trump running for his first term, and within his first term, Maria Corina Machado actually won that Venezuelan election. Maduro had somewhere around 30%. Well, it was a corrupt election. We've been used to those things around the world, sadly, and sadly here in the Americas. And she was imprisoned by the regime. But President Trump, if you remember that tweet back when it was Twitter, if you touch a hair on her head, you will feel my wrath. And they ended up releasing her. And she thought that was the end of her life in that process. So for her to be here now, she's very grateful to the president, but also looking towards the future and wanting to serve the people of Venezuela. So it'll be very interesting to watch if she does ascend to that presidential spot. And as Delcy Rodriguez right now is the current acting president, the vice president of the regime, handpicked by Maduro, but seems to be at least having strong dialogue with the president of the United States. So this will be interesting to watch as this is ongoing. Another interesting note when it comes to places like El Salvador and how dangerous it was in the hemisphere in Central America. They turned to God. They prayed together as a cabinet and invoked the Lord on high. And that brought them from one of the most dangerous countries in the entire world and in Central America to one of the most prosperous and one of the most now safe. And many people of El Salvadoran ancestry going back to the country to start businesses and to resurrect a truly great nation. And the same thing can happen for Venezuela. I thought this was a very interesting story. She has collected around Miss Corina Machado 7,000 rosaries, just speaking with people as they've been gifted to her throughout this process, running for president, leading an opposition movement for freedom. And she gifted one of those rosaries to President Donald Trump, along with the Nobel Peace Prize. So a very special token that will likely be hanging in the White House. A very nice, momentous piece that Oslo said you cannot transfer that award, but she said, you know what? I'm going to have it framed and presented to the President of the United States, even with my name on it. So a special connection that they have as they seek to make the Americas safe again and to make the Americas great again. It's our hemisphere, and President Trump is doing the Monroe Doctrine 2.0. You could call it the Donroe Doctrine if you like, as the 20-point peace phase with cut number 2 is now being enacted. President Trump sharing on Truth Social, as Steve Witkoff announced, we have officially entered the next phase of Gaza's 20-point plan. Though this peace plan has been invoked since the ceasefire, my team has helped deliver record levels of humanitarian aid to Gaza, reaching civilians at historic speed, reaching civilians there. Even the United Nations has acknowledged this achievement as unprecedented. Now, these results have set the stage for the next phase. As chairman of the Board of Peace, I am backing a newly appointed Palestinian technocratic government, the National Committee for the Administration of Gaza, supported by the board's high representative to govern Gaza during its transition. These Palestinian leaders are unwavering committed to a peaceful future for the region with the support of Egypt, Turkey, and Qatar, will secure a comprehensive demilitarization agreement with Hamas, including the surrender of all weapons and the dismantling of every tunnel. Hamas must immediately honor its commitments, including the return to the final body of Israel. Now, the proceeds will not delay to full demilitarization. And I've said before, they can do this the easy way or the hard way. The people of Gaza have suffered long enough. The time is now. And then President Trump also sharing Special Envoy Steve Witkoff's comments there that, importantly, Phase 1 delivered historic humanitarian aid, maintained the ceasefire, returned all living hostages, and the remains of 27 of the 28 deceased hostages. We are deeply grateful to Egypt, Turkey, and Qatar for their indispensable mediation efforts that made all progress to date possible. And hats off to Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. He has been central to all this in these negotiations, really the right-hand man to Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And as we know, too, even getting prisoners out of Russia last year. And he has traveled so many miles and many sleepless nights to make sure that family members back home get their loved ones after these terrible, terrible conflicts all started under the last administration. Thank you to angelpaste.com, the Christian-owned veteran hiring Miracle Cream Group. They are outstanding. I use their original Miracle Cream, the vitamin B infused, non-GMO, no chemicals. It's a great way to get over the winter blues as well with their orange options, vitamin C infused, non-GMO, no chemicals, as well as their natural facial spray. Check out all of their amazing items at angelpaste.com. Again, Christian-owned. They hire veterans. They're out of Spring, Texas, the Gulf of America, right near there, not too many miles away. angelpaste.com. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history. Also, mypillow.com/RSBN. The CEO, Mike Lindell, a dear friend of ours, running for governor of Minnesota and extending the Christmas sale. A merry, jolly fellow in his own right. Save up to 80%, 80, as we continue celebrating the holidays. Why not? Support Mike Lindell and Right Side Broadcasting Network at mypillow.com/RSBN. You have over 2,000 options there at the website. And we know, as President Trump put it, the master deal maker, Mike Lindell. And along with that, trying to go after a big seat there in Minnesota after this failed governance of Tim Walz. So we'll watch that closely, but get your day started with a cup of My Coffee, free and fair trade coffee beans. So tremendously fantastic, a great smell in the house as well. So those My Slippers are nice, and the My Pillow 1.0. How about those Giza Dream Sheets? Those are some comfortable ones, perhaps the most comfortable I have ever had. Use promo code RSBN at checkout. It's mypillow.com/RSBN. If you like what you see here at the network, feel free to donate. We are not a legacy item. We're not a corporate outlet like some media is, but we have our space here to bring you a live desk and a rally network committed to the unbridled access for the viewer to President Trump, Vice President Vance, Speaker Mike Johnson in the 119th Congress. RSBnetwork.com/donate or text RSBN to 801-801 because you deserve to know what's going on in the federal city and also your neck of the woods and how the government you put into place on November 5th of 2024 is making a difference on a daily basis for not only the American people, but around the world. If you'd like to send a check or money order, 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344. It's the loveliest village on the plains. It's Auburn, Alabama. 36830, 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. Thank you for supporting us here on the right side of history. We will catch a quick commercial break for more sponsors right now, but before that, make sure to sign up for All America First updates and exclusive offers at rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. There you can find the great writers and the topics that are shaping our day now on this 16th day of January. Happy Friday. Amazing to watch that this is so much happening and slightly over 2 weeks into the new year, and we're here to cover it all for you. So be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss a minute of the action. Stick with us here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Robert McNeely. We'll be back with you in a couple minutes.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First news. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you...
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. As we anticipate President Trump at the top of the hour, be sure to stay with us as he hosts a rural healthcare roundtable. The First Lady today also addressing AI literacy at a Zoom event titled AI for Tomorrow's Leaders event. She's leading with online advocacy. The Take It Down Act as well, a great bipartisan piece of legislation that she led on all of this, and joked around during Christmas that President Trump, maybe he should take over the decorations next year with everything that he is so busy with. But she is also very busy in her own right, being a first lady for all of America. And that will take place today at noon Eastern. So the White House releasing that information from the office of the First Lady. The fact sheet as well. President Trump calling on Congress to enact the great health care plan, calling on them to lower healthcare costs. President Trump is calling on the 119th Congress to do just that with enacting the great healthcare plan. It's a comprehensive plan to lower drug prices, lower insurance premiums, hold big insurance companies accountable, and maximize price transparency. Now, lowering drug prices, the great healthcare plan lowers prescription drug prices for all Americans by building on President Trump's historic actions to reduce costs for American patients. The great healthcare plan calls for codifying the Trump administration's most favored nations deals to get Americans the same low prices like other countries for the same exact drugs that they are using around the world. This would build off of President Trump's landmark actions that made insulin more affordable in his first term and the successful voluntary negotiations following his recent executive order to lower drug prices. Voluntarily negotiated deals with HHS and CMS will be grandfathered in. And the great healthcare plan makes more verified, safe pharmaceutical drugs available for over-the-counter purchase. This will lower healthcare costs and increase consumer choice by strengthening price transparency, increasing competition, and ultimately reducing the need for costly and time-consuming doctor's visits. Now, the lowering insurance premiums, the great healthcare plan would execute the president's vision to do just that, sending money directly to the American people, lowering health insurance premiums, and cut the kickbacks, raising insurance premiums for average everyday Americans. The great healthcare plan stops sending big insurance companies billions of taxpayer dollars in extra funded subsidies and liabilities and payments, and instead sending that money directly to eligible American citizens to allow them to buy health insurance of their choice. And the great healthcare plan funds a cost-sharing reduction program for healthcare plans, which would save taxpayers at least $36 billion and reduces the most common Obamacare plans by and the premiums by over 10%, according to the Congressional Budget Office. Now, the Great Healthcare Plan will end the kickbacks paid by pharmacy benefit managers. Those are the PBMs you might have heard of, and our friends at All Family Pharmacy definitely taking those PBMs on, who can really double dip. When you think about, they'll own the pharmacy, then they'll turn around and write the premiums. And it's just amazing to see how that could even be a legal process. But they deceptively raise the cost of health insurance as a result. Holding big insurance companies accountable, the Great Healthcare Plan ends the days of insurance companies using complexity to make it difficult for Americans to hold them to account, creating plain English insurance. This standard requiring insurance companies to prominently post their profits they take out of premiums, as well as information on the frequency with which they deny care. Speaking of that, thank you to All Family Pharmacy, a great online pharmacy with this new biohacking deal they have out there. 30% off of biohacking products. And if you did not catch my exclusive interview with Michael Kunzler just yesterday, scrub back to that morning coverage with 30% off of these materials at allfamilypharmacy.com/biohacking. Scan that QR code there now. It's really amazing to see how this works. All you need is to reach out to them with a pharmaceutical note. You can also speak to their staff as well if you do have any questions. And there's no red tape, there's no bureaucracy. Simply getting you life-saving biohacking products, including maintenance meds and also emergency medical kits you could travel on the road with, and especially important during this cold and flu season to have things like Tamiflu as well. So give these a try, especially that methylene blue and the Ceromelon, and also NAD plus to the glutathione thione. I mean, amazing products for you. RSBN 30 is the code. That's RSBN 30 at allfamilypharmacy.com/biohacking. Also, thank you to Kalshi.com/RSBN. Big college football playoff. You heard from Coach Tuberville himself about the Indiana Hoosiers, a Cinderella story. They can go 16-0. The first team to do that if they are successful to win that many games in one season with the expanded schedules. And as the Rose Bowl and Peach Bowl champions take on the Fiesta Bowl champions, Miami Hurricane, we will watch all of it on Monday night, January 19th. And so will President Trump. He will be there at the Hard Rock in sunny southern Florida. It's going to be an amazing time, a great game. Be sure to trade and bet on it at Kalshi.com/RSBN. Also, thank you to AngelPaste.com for the miracle cream that just keeps on giving. The vitamin B infused, non-GMO, no chemicals. Also, the orange option, vitamin C infused. You can experience the miracle today at AngelPaste.com. They're Christian-owned. They hire veterans. They're based out of Spring, Texas, a great place to live in the Houston Metroplex off the Gulf of America. Be sure also to try their natural facial spray and all of their products there at angelpaste.com. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history as the Great Healthcare Plan creates the plain English insurance standard. So not industry jargon. What you see is what you get. Claims denied will be clearly written and explained. Also, it gives people better purchasing decisions as the patients when they're upfront about what they're charging for. The Great Healthcare Plan will also require insurance companies to publish the percentage of their reviews that are paid out to claims versus overhead costs and profits on their websites. The Great Healthcare Plan also requires health insurance companies to publish the percentage of insurance claims they reject and average wait times for the routine care on their websites. Just maximizing price transparency. The Great Healthcare Plan requires any healthcare provider or insurer who accepts Medicare or Medicaid to prominently post their pricing and fees in their place of business and ensure insurance companies are complying with price transparency requirements. In President Trump's first term, he issued historic regulations requiring hospitals and insurance companies to post prices in various forms. The Biden administration did not enforce that, dropped the ball on that like they did so many other things, from Afghanistan to an open border. But this great healthcare plan requires all healthcare providers and insurers to answer their patients up front on the prices they will be charged, restoring accountability, transparency, and rightly giving back power to the patients. They deliver on promises to lower the cost of healthcare. President Trump promising to lower healthcare costs for all Americans, and the great healthcare plan will build off of critical actions already taken in his second term to help Americans afford high-quality health care. Now, on May 12th of 2025, President Trump signed an executive order titled Delivering Most Favored Nation Prescription Drug Pricing to American Patients directing the American administration to take numerous actions to bring drug prices in line with those paid by similar nations. Since that time, the administration securing 16 deals with major pharmaceutical manufacturers to bring these prices in line and with other developed nations. So important for people because we're having our drugs made elsewhere, including China in most cases, and that's all changing now under this extraordinary plan. This provides substantial price relief on numerous products taken by millions of Americans. Shortly after returning to office, President Trump signed an executive order titled Making America Healthy Again by empowering patients with clear, accurate, and affordable healthcare pricing information, directing the administration to, after years of neglect by the Biden administration, promote universal access to clear and accurate healthcare prices. Since that time, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services has ramped up enforcement against hospitals out of compliance with price transparency rules, finalizing improvements to hospital price transparency and significant improvements to those rules for insurance companies. Now, in this historic Working Families Tax Cuts law related to this, saving accounts for up to 10 million people on Obamacare took the most significant action to reduce healthcare fraud, and so much of the fraud, as we've seen in Minneapolis, $19 billion that we know of when it comes to the child care scandal and the SNAP funds, all connected to healthcare providing in this country, and made this the largest investment in rural healthcare ever. So we'll hear more moments from now as we await the President of the United States to host this rural healthcare roundtable. Looking forward to that, as this will be a great success for the American people, bringing down those costs for your healthcare, because I think right, left, and center, this is a main focal point for a lot of voters right now. It's the skyrocketing cost of health insurance. If you had a health scare in the past, or a long stay at a hospital, or perhaps even an ambulance ride, you can get those bills and look at it and say, what are you exactly charging me for? This doesn't make any sense. And many times, more often than not, even the doctors providing that care, the way it's codified into any given system, cannot explain it, or their office cannot explain it either. So this is a common sense win for all of America. As we wait for the president to get together with this roundtable, we'll take a quick commercial break again for sponsorships. You're watching the right side of history. Stick with us, as we should have President Trump moments away.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door. Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Robert McNeely. As President Trump to host this roundtable moments from now, he's unveiling the great healthcare plan to lower those costs and deliver money directly to the people. President Trump's great healthcare plan is a broad healthcare initiative that will slash prescription drug prices, reduce insurance premiums, hold big insurance companies accountable, and maximize price transparency in the American healthcare system. Now, the plan will deliver money directly to the American people, not the insurance companies. We saw them all get together with the president recently there at the White House. Big pharma and special interest groups no longer hold the keys to your health. Putting patients over industry leaders and their profits is what he promised and what he is prepared to deliver on. Again, promises made, promises kept. The great healthcare plan also builds on the success of the first term by promoting competition, eliminating wasteful spending, and putting consumers back in control. And as we break all that down, with cut number 3, President Trump also establishing that board of peace. He is truly the peace president, and using that peace through strength and the MAGA initiative in America First to strive for what's hard, because it's easy for anyone just to go to war. It's easy for someone to drag our troops into long commitments like we saw with the former presidents living. And the debacle of Iraq, what happened in Afghanistan, President Trump fixing all of it. It's my great honor to announce the Board of Peace has been formed, the president writing on Truth Social. The members of the board will be announced shortly, but I could say this with certainty, that it is the greatest and most prestigious board ever assembled at any time in any place. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump, signing that there. An amazing strive to get peace happening throughout the world, and he has been solving multitude of problems with the invitation of other world leaders. 8, as he's counting. He says 8 1/4 now. It's been more difficult and a surprise to him with Russia and Ukraine, but hopefully this year, and I predict as well, at some point, you will have peace in that awful conflict going on far too long now. With President Trump also stating with cut number 4, financial numbers great in the United States. Great financial numbers were released today. Our country has never done better. So many people ask me the reason for this, and I will tell them it's just one word: tariffs. We've taken in hundreds of billions of dollars with virtually no inflation, and our national security has never been as strong as it is today. God bless the USA. And God bless you, Mr. President. Thank you for all that you do for this great nation of ours, including our sponsors here at the network, allfamilypharmacy.com/biohacking right now. Be sure to check out their code RSBN30 for 30% off of these biohacking products, including methylene blue. Again, scan that QR code there. All Family Pharmacy, helping change how people across the United States go about the barriers of traditional pharmacies. So let me explain here as you make the order. You do not need insurance, only a pharmaceutical note. You could talk to their doctors on the other end or even their staff about different options, and they send that order right to you, to your door, after review from a United States licensed physician. And it's a wide variety of selections. In fact, over 300 for you, not just the biohacking, but also ivermectin, Tamiflu, antivirals, antibiotics, as well as emergency medical kits. So important to have this time of year with cold and flu season and, again, a lower level strain of COVID out there. Get the medications that actually make a difference in your medicine cabinet before it's too late. And you can also take these on the road with you. But right now, a very special deal announced yesterday on the network. My exclusive interview with Michael Kunzler, the great co-owner of All Family Pharmacy. allfamilypharmacy.com/biohacking, code RSBN30 right there for you. This model is very helpful for those who value convenience, but also are tired of those pharmacies down the street who simply will not prescribe these life-saving medications. allfamilypharmacy.com/biohacking. Also, thank you to calci.com/RSBN, who will win that big college football championship come Monday. We're looking forward to seeing all that. On January 19th, it's the Indiana Hoosiers and the great Miami Hurricane. It's going to be fun to watch at the Hard Rock, and President Trump will be there on hand. You know how much he loves sports. Heck, he was with the Florida Panthers just yesterday and getting a gold hockey stick from them, as well as another jersey for their back-to-back championships. So make those trades and bets right there on sports, music, politics, culture, and more. It's calci.com/RSBN. Also, if you like what you see, go to mypillow.com/RSBN. We love that amazing Michael Lindell. What a guy. The CEO of mypillow.com/RSBN. Save with code RSBN. And that Christmas sale still going on, 80%, 80% right now. So be sure to go there for over 2,000 different products. So much to choose from. My personal favorite, from the My Slippers to the original My Pillow, the Giza Dream Sheets, amazing. Also the My Coffee, a great free and fair trade option for your coffee to start you in the morning. And some hope coming for Minnesota as he's running for governor of Minnesota. We look forward to that race. Promo code RSBN, mypillow.com/RSBN. Thank you, Mr. Mike Lindell. An amazing team and amazing staff, all made right here in the USA of A and the great Minnesota factories, facilities with his team. They're really good people, and we hope that you support them as we continue with the Christmas sale. Also, RSBN Donate. If you like what you see, please feel free to donate to the live desk and also to your rally network. You could do so by going to rsbnetwork.com/donate or text RSBN to 801-801. You can also send check or money order to 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344, the loveliest village on the plains. It's Auburn, Alabama. 36830 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344. Again, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. Thank you for supporting us on the right side of history. Also, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for All America First updates and content. You can do that by going to rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. There you can find the great issues of the day and our extraordinary writers here at the network. So not just the broadcast, but also the written word that dives into many different political hot button topics, from what's happening in Venezuela, Maria Corina Machado also meeting with President Trump, to what's taking place in Iran. And God be with the people as President Trump has continued to encourage them, protest, take back your government. And America, in one way or another, can seem to help here, and they definitely did. Our military, when it came to striking those centrifuges where they were building up uranium. We know that the Obama administration was basically giving them a ransom and funneling millions of our taxpayer dollars to Iran and an extreme rogue regime, something that, Barack Hussein Obama, he was the modern Neville Chamberlain of our day, weak leadership, and made the world much more volatile. President Trump ended the 12 Days War, and then peace immediately happened and has united through the Abraham Accords to what's taken place in the Middle East post the Biden administration, the debacle that was, to bring together people who were traditional enemies, Arab nations with Israel as well, to all condemn the actions of the Iranian mullahs, the Republican Guard, and the totalitarianism that we're seeing there as Elon Musk is trying to get those Starlinks in there. Sometimes internet comes up so we can hear from the people inside, but also the problem with the government regulating that and shutting down that internet so people don't have access to the outside world. So you have any reports from hundreds to thousands of people dying in this conflict at the hands of their government. Of course, their foreign minister in a recent interview blaming the Israeli government for that, and by all accounts is the furthest thing from the truth. Reminds me somewhat of the spokesperson for the former Ba'ath Party of Iraq before the Iraq War, saying the United States did not invade, actually trying to paint a picture that did not exist in entirety. It was really unbelievable to watch as that invasion started in March of 2003. But like this, you have a rogue regime that is not telling the truth and harming their citizens. We know that for a fact. President Trump also going into strike at ISIS and Boko Haram targets in an escalation of that Operation Hawkeye to defend our bases, and working with the new Syrian government to make sure that radical Islamic terrorism is squashed as a result of the killings of 2 of our military officials and a translator back in December. So there's a lot going on with that, as sadly senators back here at home, including Mark Warner of the Commonwealth of Virginia, making claims that President Trump is starting wars and attacking places like Venezuela, Iran, and Syria. And it's really a twisting of the narrative because, like Coach Tuberville, representing the great Yellowhammer State right here in Alabama, spoke to us just the other day, this was an arrest of a narco-terrorist trafficker. It's not nation building happening in Venezuela. They're working with the current government, the interim president, Rodriguez, and then also with the opposition to see what the next steps are, and then bringing that infusion once again of the oil and gas companies meeting with President Trump last week at the White House and seeing how they can bring peace and prosperity to the entire region and ultimately lower gas prices, ultimately less influence from China and Russia within the Americas. So again, really the Monroe Doctrine 2.0, the Don Roe Doctrine, as the president has coined it, in order to make America safe again and very wealthy and prosperous in all of those oil ventures. 303 billion barrels could be tapped, by far the most in the world, although from my understanding, the Venezuelan oil a little bit more crude, harder to get out of the ground and then convert, but well worth it, as we know at least a couple of companies have stayed there over this period of time from the communist dictatorship and takeover back in 1992, including Chevron. So we'll watch all of that as that unfolds right before our very eyes. But today's focus will be on the Rural Healthcare Roundtable. Also, be sure to join this afternoon as well. President Trump heading down to Palm Beach for the usual weekend getaway, but also a very special time for a renaming of a Southern boulevard to the President Donald J. Trump Way down there in Palm Beach, Florida. So he'll participate in that. It's at 3:15. Be sure to tune in for that. Mr. Matthew Alvarez will be in for that coverage as President Trump, after this roundtable, will head via the South Lawn and Marine One to the great JBA, Joint Base Andrews and Air Force One. And we'll see there as well if he will take any questions, likely to answer some from reporters. And in case you missed it just yesterday, Caroline Leavitt, the superstar, doing a remarkable job handling that just ridiculous question from that left-wing bias reporter regarding what took place with ICE in Minneapolis. And she just calmly said, what is your assessment of this? And he said, I think ICE acted aggressively and in error. And it's amazing when reporters attempt to paint a narrative rather than report on and find the facts. He completely omitted the fact that he was struck by a vehicle, and that car that Miss Green was driving became really a weapon of war in that moment. And he did what he was trained to do. And it's true that it can be tragic, the loss of life, while at the same time, her actions clearly led to that. And thank you to the president, the vice president, and Secretary Noam for speaking truth to power there. allfamilypharmacy.com/biohacking. It is the go-to right now. This is the great deal that was announced yesterday. 30% off of all biohacking products, code RSBN30. That's NAD plus to methylene blue, the Morellin family as well, for all of these amazing things. And Michael Kunzler speaking to us about how biohacking can actually keep you nice and safe and ready to go. Whether it's just going to the gym or wanting to slow down the effects of aging, these are well worth looking into, and the science is proving just that at allfamilypharmacy.com/biohacking, code RSBN30. Scan that QR code now, and let me tell you a thing or two about the great people over at All Family Pharmacy. They are changing the way people can access life-saving medication. They don't have to go through the barriers found in traditional pharmacies, and those pharmacies that simply do not prescribe what has been on the American list of options for the last half century, from parasite cleanses to everything we're learning to counter dementia and Alzheimer's with, again, these life-saving medications. Also, they have maintenance medications to ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, and emergency medical kits that you could take on the road with you. But good to stock up on Tamiflu, especially this time of year with cold and flu season. And instead of waiting for appointments at urgent care or even your own doctor, to all of the complications that can come with insurance companies, it's the topic of this week really being highlighted. You simply order online. A U.S. licensed doctor reviews that and sends it directly to your door. Again, a wide variety and selection you can see there. But right now, code RSBN30 for 30% off of allfamilypharmacy.com/biohacking. Also, thank you to Kalshi.com/RSBN. We absolutely love Kalshi. Might as well trade and bet on the amazing sports that will be happening this weekend. The divisional round, my Chicago Bears taking on the Los Angeles Rams, and many highlights from that Super Bowl team, January 12th, 1986, competing at the old Soldier Field, same location, but before the renovations in 2004. And that was the last time they played the Rams in a big playoff scenario like this. And that was quite a game where the Bears dominated against our friends out west, who will win the college football championship. Great to break that down with Coach Tuberville, the United States Senator for Alabama, as he was a college football coach, pro football coach as well. And will those Hoosiers continue the Cinderella story against the Miami Hurricanes at their home stadium at Hard Rock? Again, President Trump will be at hand. And in the stadium for that, it's going to be a star-studded event down there in the free Sunshine State of Florida. So sports, politics, music, culture, and more. It's Kalshi.com/RSBN. Trade on anything. and scan that QR code right now. So we're excited to see all of that as moments from now, the President of the United States hosting that rural healthcare roundtable. And we can actually go back to some of the quotes he's been sharing regarding this new plan to deliver money directly to the American people. President Trump announcing the great healthcare plan. I am thrilled to announce my plan to lower healthcare prices for all Americans, truly making healthcare affordable again. We're doing things that nobody's ever been able to do. We're calling it the Great Healthcare Plan. Instead of putting the needs of big corporations and special interests first, our plan finally puts you first and puts money back in your pocket. To continue the president's comments on this earlier this week, the government is going to pay money directly to you. It goes to you, and then you take the money and buy your own health care, and the big insurance companies lose, and the people of our country win, win, win. This proposal locks in the massive discount on prescription drugs that my administration is achieving. So we see all of that as soon we'll host a rural healthcare roundtable. It's going to be the president moments from now. This is all through the most favored nation status and the right to try. President Trump really pushing for this in the first term as well, as we saw all of those options helping patients see price reported to them, because I'm sure you've had a bill. I've had a few of those in the past where I'm like, what am I being charged for? And how does this, the math does not make sense. I'm not seeing how this all adds up, especially with insurance companies. Now, the most favored nation drug pricing agreement that was reached will bring down drug prices by 80, 90, and in some cases, even more percentage, just numbers that nobody's ever heard of before, because many people, right, left, and center, this has been a focal point of their costs throughout the year. In some cases, people being bankrupt as a result. And we know with the Unaffordable Care Act, as awful as that was the initial argument to address healthcare, was the skyrocketing prices to begin with. That sadly did not solve the problem. In fact, in many ways made it worse. But President Trump stating that your prescription drugs will come way, way down. And under this policy, the prices of many drugs being slashed by 300, 400, even 500%. And starting this month at, write this down, TrumpRx.gov. Yes, TrumpRx.gov. Go to that feed channel, and there you can find some options of how you can have more purchasing power and protecting your health in the meantime. So instead of Americans paying the highest drug prices in the world, which we have for decades, we will now be paying the lowest cost paid by any other nation. That's why we're going to pay, and the American people will get the savings, according to the president. I have to reiterate, the lowest price in the world is what you're going to pay. Before, you were paying the highest price in the world by far, and the other politicians did nothing about it. So I'm asking Congress to complete the work we've started. My plan would reduce your insurance premiums by stopping government payoffs to big insurance companies and by sending that money directly to the people. Obamacare was designed to make insurance companies rich, and I call it the Unaffordable Care Act. Now, President Trump continuing with billions of dollars and taxpayer subsidies that helped their stock prices skyrocket by over 1,700% as you paid more money for health care every single year. More and more, the premiums went higher and higher. I want to end this flagrant scam and put extra money straight into healthcare savings accounts in your name. And you could go out and buy your own healthcare, and you'll make a great deal. You get better healthcare for less money, and that way you can choose the care that is right for your family. To further reduce insurance premiums, my plan ends the giant kickbacks to insurance brokers and the corporate middleman that only drives up costs. It fully funds a long neglected part of the law known as the Cost Sharing Reduction Program. And this measure alone should cut premiums on the most popular Obamacare plans. It's hard to believe there are any because it's a hated program. It's unaffordable, but it's going to cut them by an average of 10 to 15%. The Great Healthcare Plan, it's great healthcare at a lower price, mandating unprecedented accountability and transparency from insurance companies and all healthcare providers. So these companies and special interests can no longer profiteer at your expense. The president continued saying that, as the saying goes, sunlight is the best disinfectant. That is why my plan orders all the insurance companies to publish rate and coverage comparisons in very plain English. It requires insurance to publish detailed information about how much of your money they're going to be paying out in claims versus how much they are taking in profits. Now it forces them to realize and release detailed data on how many claims are being denied and whether those denials are eventually overturned on appeal. Most importantly, it will require any hospital or insurer who accepts Medicare or Medicaid to prominently post all prices of their place of business so that you are never surprised and you can easily shop for a better deal and something that's cost effective for you. And you're going to end up doing both. You're going to get a better deal and better care. President Trump saying that we will have maximum price transparency and costs come down incredibly. I'm calling on Congress to pass this framework into law without delay. We have to do it right now so we can immediately get relief to the American people, the people I love. And it's always that jovial end to many of his statements and the smile on his face and the comedy that he brings to it, as a lot of people saying because of that Reuters interview that he wants to cancel the elections. Of course, he's being facetious about that, stating the success is already happening 16 days into this new year. And isn't it great to think that we have 3 more years of President Donald John Trump? Now, by implementing these measures, the Great Healthcare Plan will deliver immediate relief to millions of Americans across the country struggling with high healthcare costs due to the Unaffordable Care Act, brought to you by none other than the Democrats. For more information on the Great Healthcare Plan, you can visit greathealthcare.gov. That is greathealthcare.gov. Easy to remember there. Also, again, trumprx.gov. So those are the 2 sites you want to look at, greathealthcare.gov and trumprx.gov, as this president committed to just that. And he should be moments away from now to talk on rural health care, the Roundtable, and the one big beautiful bill that helped fund $50 million into those rural hospitals. Something that with the lockdown, if you remember from last year, Democrats were ready, willing, and able to stop it completely in order to fund illegal alien health care and benefits that we generously were giving them. In many cases, the American people did not know of it. Very similar to the SNAP waste, fraud, and abuse, $19 billion out the door. Maybe a reason why child care costs so much in this country. So we're watching all of that as that story continues to develop, and perhaps the scandal of the year right out the gate, Governor Tim Walz. And as President Trump has put it, the moron that he is, but I think it might even be more insidious, something that was not only ignored and turned the other cheek, but with the racial tropes that happen, it's amazing. As they're standing now, so the president walking into the East Room will go there live to the White House.
The United States, Donald J. Trump.
This is a very important one today. We've worked on it long and hard. For years, they've been working on it. And I see Kevin's in the audience, and I just want to thank you. You were fantastic on television today. I actually want to keep you where you are, if you want to know the truth. Kevin Hassett is so good. I'm saying, wait a minute. if I move them, these Fed guys, certainly the one we have now, they don't talk much. I would lose you. It's a serious concern to me. So I just want to say thank you very much. You've done incredible. We don't want to lose him, Susie, but we'll see how it all works out, okay? Thank you, Kevin. Great job. And thank you for all being here as we discuss the largest investment in rural health care in American history. This is the big one. We're delighted to be joined by many incredible members of the healthcare community, including doctors, nurses, and pharmacists from all across America. We're also very happy to have with us some very talented people. A man who is really good at this, extremely non-controversial, which is, I wanted somebody non-controversial, so I chose Robert F. Kennedy, Jr. to head the whole shebang up. And he also happens to be a great guy. Brooke Rollins, who's doing a fantastic job at agriculture, and thank you. And how are the prices coming?
They're coming, sir, they're coming down.
Don't forget, we inherited a mess.
We sure did.
Remember eggs? They were up 4 times higher than they ever were. And in my first day, they said, what are you going to do about eggs? I said, I didn't cause the problem. We didn't cause, we inherited a mess, but the prices are coming down.
Yes, sir. Wholesale prices are down 86%. Retail a little bit less than that, but yes, you're making America affordable again.
With you in charge, I have no doubt, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And administrator for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, a really good man, a really brilliant guy, Dr. Mehmet Oz. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Oz. And thank you also to Governor Jim Pillen, Senator Dan Sullivan, and Representatives Rob Bresnahan, Mike Lawler, John McGuire, and Nick Begich. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it very much. Now, we have other congressmen here, I see, and a couple of senators, and we appreciate everybody being here. Everyone wants to be a part of this. It's so important. It's maybe, I don't know, for many people, there's nothing more important. I would say maybe defense. We need defense, and we need offense, too, by the way. As part of the great, big, beautiful bill, we're increased, and we have increased funding for the health care by an unprecedented $50 billion. That's rural health care. Nobody thought that was going to happen, and we got it done. So we have rural health care for those that were trying to make a case that we weren't taking care of the rural community. I'm all about the rural community. We won the rural communities by numbers that nobody's ever won them before, and we're taking care of those great people. So we already did this. We increased funding for rural health care by an unprecedented, record-setting $50 billion over 5 years, which will benefit Americans in all 50 states. And this made possible and was made possible by cutting massive waste, fraud, and abuse from Medicaid and reinvesting those funds to revitalize hospitals and our cherished rural communities and hospitals in rural communities. And I want to say, with all of the fraud that we're seeing in Minnesota and California and other places, I actually think that if we do an unbelievable job, you could almost balance your budget, Kevin. If you take a look at the kind of numbers you're talking about, nobody ever saw anything like it. They're all corrupt politicians, from the governor of Minnesota to the governor of California to everybody. They're just corrupt politicians. And you're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars in fraud. Waste fraud and abuse, but in fraud, you're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars. Under the Unaffordable Care Act, which is Obamacare, it's called the unaffordable. It is unaffordable, remember that. Rural hospitals and communities were devastated by soaring costs, and that continues. Despite colossal increases in government spending since Obamacare was passed, only 7% of the annual Medicaid spending on rural hospitals has gone to rural hospitals. So there's only a very little. They didn't care. Obama didn't care about the rural community, to be totally blunt. What he did care about is insurance companies. And this was a bill to make insurance companies wealthy. And they did. They made insurance companies very wealthy. I would say they don't like me too much because they spent hundreds of billions of dollars, and we're going to have that money spent to the people and given to the people. Not we're going to circumvent the insurance companies. Partially as a result, rural health care facilities have suffered from low occupancy rates, workforce shortages, and failing programs that put Band-Aids, literally put Band-Aids over the problems in those communities. And we're not going to have that. We're taking great care of them. With the Rural Health Transformation Program, we are getting rural communities the health support they need, and we're getting it immediately. These funds will go to empowering rural hospitals, strengthening their workforce, modernizing facilities and technology, and ensuring that rural Americans get world-class health care in their own community, right smack in their own community, like they've never had it before, and they've been hurt very badly by the Unaffordable Care Act. Every single Democrat in Congress voted against the lifeline for rural communities, and I hope everyone knows this, and this is not about elections, but I hope you remember this in the midterms, because the Democrats are just so horrible toward the rural community. But I want to take a moment to thank the incredible House and Senate Republicans who worked so hard on making this historic investment possible. That's what they did, and they did work hard. I don't think, got a Democrat vote, did we? Did we get one Democrat vote? We got all Republican votes. It was an amazing feat, and I want to thank Mike, our Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, and John Thune for really doing a great job. It was tough. You know, we have small majorities, and I want to thank the congressmen that are here for doing, in particular, for working so hard and getting this done. Yesterday, I also announced our framework to lower health care prices for all Americans, including those in rural America, and we're calling it the Great Health Care Plan. You know, we had to come up with a name, and everybody wanted to say, oh, well, can we put something about lowering costs, because we're lowering costs very substantially. So I had Bobby, and I had Oz, we had everybody in there. We had a whole group of people who were trying to come up with, so we're saying, the cost reduction plan that gives you good health care. And I said, it's too long. It's not going to sell. I said, we had more plans. And they wanted to get the words cost reduction in there, Laura, especially you. They wanted cost reduction in, and then they wanted great health care in. I said, look, you can have one or the other, but it gets too long. We're talking about the name of a plan. So we got it down to 7 or 8 words, and which is far too long. Nobody can remember that much. And I said, how about just call it, because this is the Great Health Care Plan. Now, a great plan has to be cost-effective, otherwise it can't be a great plan. That's the way I looked at it. So we have a very glamorous name. It's called the Great Health Care Plan, not the Unaffordable Care Act. I don't like that name. This is called officially the Great Health Care Plan. That means low price and great health care. So you're going to have, at a lower price, great health care. First, our proposal codifies the massive discounts on prescription drugs that my administration is achieving through our most favored nation provisions. Okay, we can go into this. We can go into this for hours, but the bottom line is we'll be paying the lowest price of any nation in the world. Whoever's paying the lowest, we match it. This could have been done years ago. I was going to do it in my first administration, but when COVID came toward the end, I said, I can't believe it wasn't it wasn't exactly a good time to be doing it. But I said, why isn't somebody doing it? And the reason they're not doing it is that no other nation would agree. France, as an example, paid 10% of what we paid. Germany was paying 13 or 14% what we paid. In other words, we paid many times more, not a little bit more, not 10% more, 10 times more. A pill would cost 10 times more in New York than it would cost in London, as an example, than it would cost in Munich. And this went on for many decades. This was right from the beginning. And the reason it went on was a little bit of the healthcare companies, but it was other nations. And I understand that. If I were heading Germany, I'm not going to double and triple and quadruple my healthcare. They got the healthcare companies to pay. It just took place over a long period of time, got worse and worse, and it just hit numbers that were just absolutely unsaleable. And if you remember, the doctors in the audience remember, they say, well, we have to do research and development. I said, well, what about research and development for Germany? Well, we've decided to put up so the pill would cost 5 times more because of research and development. and 5 times more for other reasons. They had all these phony reasons. And finally, I said to the healthcare companies, can't do it anymore. We can't do it. And it started, really, I tell the story. It wasn't meant to be funny. People find it funny. But a friend of mine who's a very smart guy, very, very rich, very powerful man, actually. But he was very fat. And he took the fat, I call it the fat drug. I won't give you which one. It was Ozempic. I won't tell you that. And he went to London on one of his many business trips. It's all he does is business. He can't walk across the street, but he's a great businessman. And he said, President. I said, what? He used to call me Donnie. Now he calls me President. So I said, you've come a long way. He goes, but I have a problem. What's your problem? In New York, I pay $1,300 for this drug. Now, this means nothing to him. This is like a penny out of your wallet. The guy's worth hundreds of millions, billions of dollars. He said, and in London, sir, I pay just a fraction of that. I said, what are you paying? $87. I said, well, is it the same drug? I knew exactly what he was getting at because it bothered me for a long time. He said, it's the exact same drug. And because of his wealth and his business smarts, he had it checked. It was made in the same plant by the same company. It's identical. And here I pay $87, and in New York I pay $1,300. So it was too much to bear, because after I told him that the drug does not work on him, because I saw him recently, he's actually fatter than ever. I said, the drug is not working on you. You're going to have to go to something else. But it does work on a lot of people. And he said, thanks, you make me feel good. I said, well, I got to be truthful. You always tell the truth, right, Mr. Congressman? Oh, look, two of the great congressmen. But the drug, we have to do something about it, because that's the same with I would say, Bobby, every drug, essentially. Doesn't have to be in that proportion. In some cases, it's much worse. Because what happened, I might as well get off this crap because it doesn't explain it properly. Because what happened is these countries are very smart, and the drug companies would go to them and they said, look, we're paying $10 for the pill. We're not paying more. Charge America. Mm-hmm. And this happened one time, then the next year. This is over 40 years. All of a sudden, they're paying $10 for a pill, and we're paying like $130 for the same pill. It just happened over years, slowly. And it got to a point over the last 10, 12, 15 years where it just was unbearable. And I went to a great executive at Eli Lilly, the top man. He's a very smart guy. And I confronted him, and he had the same line that they always had, research and development. I said, look, we got to stop this nonsense. We're paying 10 times more for things in Europe. It's not research and development. And if it is research and development, they should pay their fair share of that too. And he said to me, and he's a great guy, he said, look, you're right, we can't defend it anymore. I said, you're admitting it? Because these guys had all of them. They must have taken a class together. It's probably illegal what they did, Lola, you'll check it, right? They must have gone to school together and said, this is the way we're going to fight this crazy thing where the United States pays 10, 12, 13 times more for a drug. Same drug made in the same plant. And he said, here's the problem we have. The nations are brutal. When we go in and say, we have to give you an increase, they say, no. Put it on America, we're not paying you anything. And they say it with such power, and they actually shut us off from selling the drug. And it just happened over and over again. It got a little worse. All of a sudden, we're paying many times more for the same. I said, well, it's not going to happen anymore. He said, the problem is, sir, you'll never get the nations to agree. It's impossible. They're very tough, and they are. And they'd have to agree to a doubling or tripling of their drug prices in order to get you down, because the world is a bigger place than us. So it's not like you cut it in half. Actually, if they raised it a little bit, we'd go down a lot. You understand that? I think people understand that. So you raise it like from $10 to $20 or $10 to $30, but we'd go from $130 down to $30 or down to $20. So because the numbers are much bigger. The numbers on their side are much bigger. So they need a doubling or tripling or quadrupling. Now, if you're the head of France, the last thing you want to do is say, I'm going to quadruple the cost of a drug. And that's the way it is. But I said, I know, but it's not fair. And this is taking place. And the head of Eli Lilly, and I really mean it, an unbelievable executive, an unbelievable guy, one of the most successful companies, and who's, by the way, spending hundreds of billions of dollars right now. He told me the other day, he's building 6 major plants in the United States. You know why he's doing that? Because of tariffs. He's doing that because of tariffs. Without tariffs, he wouldn't be doing it. Nobody understood tariffs until I came along. Nobody understood, other than President McKinley. He understood them a long time ago. And because of him, we were the richest nation that we ever were at that period of time. And then when he died, he was assassinated. Teddy Roosevelt came over and he inherited a war chest. And he built the Panama Canal, which is the single most expensive thing ever built in the history of the United States, relatively. We spent what would be the equivalent of $5 trillion building the Panama Canal. It was also the most successful thing probably we've ever built, and to this day. And then Jimmy Carter gave it away for $1. This is the same theory we have on favored nations. The great Jimmy Carter, President Jimmy Carter, gave it away for $1. We lost 38,000 men. In those days it was men. I hate to say this, but mostly men. They didn't have a lot of women workers on the Panama Canal. But we lost 38,000 people. They died from malaria and snake bites. It was a combination of that, a vicious snake, one of the most vicious. You get hit, you're dead. They died from snake bites. 38,000. They paid workers from the United States 3 times more than they made to come over to Panama and dig. For many of them, that was not a good deal. They died, 38,000. We gave it away for that. But that same stupidity having to do with the Panama Canal, and I could tell you about 100 other stories too. You don't have time. But that's what went into this whole thing with favored nations. So Europe and other nations all over the world were getting drugs from the same plant, same factory, same everything, same location, everything, same company, for a tiny fraction of what we're paying. So our people were paying a tremendous amount. So the gentleman from Eli Lilly and others, we had a meeting, and they all finally put up their hands. You got us. We give up. And they were great from that time. But we had a problem. The other nations weren't going for it. France turned it down. Germany turned it down. UK turned it down. European Union turned it down, the whole group. And they said, there's nothing you can do about it, sir. And I said, yes, there is. No, there isn't. You'll never be able to get them up. Or never. I mean, the whole industry is going to be torn apart. I said, we'll get them up easily. Are you crazy? Of course we'll get them up. That's what I do for a living. I get people up. So I started with President Macron of France, and a very nice person. I like him a lot. I hope he's listening because he doesn't believe that, but I do. He's a nice man. And I said, Emmanuel, yes, Donald, thank you so much for calling. Oh, I said, you're not going to like this call. You're going to have to get your drug prices up. No, I will not do that. I said, Emmanuel, we're paying 13 times more than, 13 times, not 13%, 13 times more than you are for this pill. I rattled off some numbers that are crazy. You know the numbers I'm talking about, Oz. Oz would give me some numbers. I'd say, this is crazy. We're paying 10 times, 12 times, 13 times. No, I will not do that. I said, look, you've got to do it. 100% you're going to do it. No, Donald, I told you I will not do that. I said, here's the story, Emmanuel. If you don't do it, I'm going to put a 25% tariff on all goods, wine, champagnes, and everything else coming into the United States of America. He said, Donald, I would love to do this for you. It would be a great honor to do it. And that's where it began. And I went through country after country. Susie was responsible for getting every one of those leaders on the thing. Susie, by the way, stand up, Susie. She is doing such a good job. She's the first female chief of staff. And she might be the best chief of staff, too. But she's doing a great job. Thank you, Susie. So Susie got them on. And I just went one after another. I called Germany. No, we will not do that. I said, no, we're going to put a 25% tariff, which is, by the way, about 7 times more than they would have to pay by raising their drug, like 7 times. This wasn't like a little bit more, 7 times more. And I may do that for Greenland, too. I may put a tariff on countries if they don't go along with Greenland, because we need Greenland for national security. So I may do that. I'll give you a little, I'll take you out of that. In fact, that'll end up being the story. But actually, this is a much bigger story because we're reducing health care by numbers that you haven't seen. So I spoke to the top 10 countries. They all said no, and within about 2 minutes, they all agreed. And we were off to the races. And now we have favored nations. It's called most favored nations. So if France is paying, let's say, $20 or $30 instead of $10, we are going to pay that 20 or 30. We pay the lowest price, whatever the lowest price is. So if France is paying $100, but Germany's paying $20, we pay what Germany pays. So we go from a horrible situation on drugs, prescription drugs, to the lowest price anywhere in the world. Is that a correct statement, Oz? Because they're going to blame you. If you want to correct me, you can, but you won't be here for long if you do. They'll
You're
say,
correct, Mr.
Oz has
President.
left employment. No, but is that a correct statement?
That's an absolutely correct statement. And that's what we want to codify in the great health care plan.
Yeah.
That's
what
why
we're
it's so
codifying.
important.
That's
Because
right.
if the president's not here, there's a flight risk with these companies not obliging us anymore, because I think it's the strength of your personality, but also they know they will follow through with the threats if we don't act. So we believe other countries will change their opinions, and so will drug companies. So we've got to get it into legislation.
Well, if you have the wrong president, the countries have tremendous influence over us. They look, why did we go to an income tax system instead of a tariff system? We had the wealthiest nation. If you go back to the 1800s, 1887, we had money, so much money, we didn't know what to do with it. But the countries at that time, same, no different. They have a tremendous influence over this country. For whatever reason, I don't know, but they do. So if you have the wrong president, they'll change the system in 2 minutes. I mean, they'll change it. And the drug companies are very powerful, too. You have to deal with them. In this case, it was both. I mean, you had a problem with the drug companies, but you had a tougher problem, in theory, other than the fact that I understood how to deal with them. And I'm the tariff king, and the tariff king has done a great job. And I hope we win the Supreme Court case, because if we don't, be a shame for our country. Be a shame. We have a great, safe, beautiful country now. We're doing better than we've ever done. We hit 42 stock market highs during the 11-month period that I've been here. There's never been anything like it. Stock market's hitting a new high again today. So it's it's been incredible. So just to end it on this, because it's such a big subject and it can't be explained by reading. As good as my speechwriter is, he's fantastic, but he can't write it in one sentence what we're talking about. So we're going to get most favored nations. We will be taking prescription drugs down to levels never even contemplated. And that's all great for healthcare, because when you're paying a tiny fraction of what you had anticipated paying prior to today, prior to this month, this all took place over the last month and a half. And the sad part is that when we first announced it, and we did it in a little bit more general form, when we first announced it, the Times did a story on page 22 or something, way back in the little story in the back of the newspaper. This is the biggest revolution in the history of medicine in this country, because it's price. You're going to buy the drugs for a small fraction of what you were paying for them last month. And I tell the story of my first term. I was the one, after 28 years, that got drug prices down. It was either 1/4 or 1/8 of 1%. I got them down for the year. First time in 28 years. I was so proud of myself, I called a news conference. I said, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time in 28 years, drug prices have gone down for the year. 1/8 of a point. In fact, I had a chart. It was the worst chart I've ever seen. It was a line that went from January to December, and it was dead straight. You had to get a little, like a carpenter uses to to see. I said, this doesn't look good. It's not the greatest line, but I was proud of it because it did. It went down either a quarter of a point or an eighth of a point, tiny. And now think of what we're doing. We're bringing medicine down by many times. Nobody's ever seen. And there are two ways of calculating. You could say 1,000%, 2,000, or you could say 90% or 80%. The Democrats want you to say 90 or 80, but there are two ways of calculating it. You understand that, Dan? And we'll take either way. It doesn't matter. But we'll be paying a tiny fraction. So that's going to go into our plan. And what Oz said is very important. It's very important that whoever is in this office is, strong and intelligent. And if they're not, they could, it could be ended. But what we want to do is we want to have it codified, so it's very hard to change. And that's all part of the process. I think it's the greatest revolution because it's financial is, a big part of the drugs. And all of the doctors sitting there know exactly what I'm talking about. They have their patients in Europe, and they're saying, I can't believe it. I'm buying the same thing for, 15% of what I pay in New York or in Chicago. And they're all nodding their heads. That's right. That's not going to happen anymore. We pay now, just to end it, the lowest price in the world, whatever that is, that's what the United States of America will be paying. Isn't that an amazing, long story? I was going to say long, boring. It's not boring. To me, it's long and exciting. It's the biggest thing to happen to healthcare. I don't think there's anything we can do. We can do all of our different methods, but there's nothing we can do that can ever top what we do. And the press should treat it fairly instead of not writing about it, because they don't write about it because it's me. Primarily because it's me, but also because it's Republican. And they don't write about it, and they should be ashamed. But fortunately, the public understands it, and that's why we won the election in a landslide. So it's a great thing. Instead of Americans paying the highest drug prices anywhere in the world by far, by 10 times sometimes, we'll now pay the lowest cost paid by the lowest nation. So the lowest nation, whatever that is, I hope they negotiate a great deal. I hope somebody out there of all those nations is going to be a better negotiator than everybody else. And whatever they get, we get, Mike. Is that pretty good? Look at Mike. Even Laura, first time I've ever seen him smile. And next, our plan would reduce your insurance premiums by stopping government payoffs to big insurance companies and sending the money directly to the people. So instead of, and this started, and I'm not really a healthcare maven, but I was always a good businessman. It started, I'm reading the paper, and I see the money that the insurance companies were making from us on Obamacare. And they're up by 1,000%, 16, I think one was up 1,723%, 1,700%. And it's because of the massive amount of money that's sent to them by the United States government. And I said, why don't we just send it directly to the people instead? And I made that statement. It was a common sense statement. I didn't check with anybody. I didn't even call Oz or anybody. It just made sense. I made a statement, and it went viral. Can you believe it? It was so popular. In other words, we cut out the insurance companies. They're making a fortune. And, they're good people. They're business people. I don't blame them. But we cut them out. We pay the money directly to the people. The people love it. I said it, I said it as a non-professional in that business. And I made the statement like, all of a sudden, it's like the biggest story, that one, the biggest story. And I get a call from Caroline, who's around here someplace. She said, sir, we're getting inundated. Margot called me too. Margot, you called me too. Margot, everyone knows Margot. She's been here from the beginning, right from the beginning. But she said, sir, both of them. They said, sir, we're being inundated by what? You made a statement about health care being paid directly to the people into health savings accounts or whatever you want, health care accounts. And I said, I did. What's the story? He said, it's crazy. It's blown up. People loved it. And so that's where we started. So Obamacare was designed to make insurance companies rich. It really was. I mean, maybe not knowingly at the time by Obama, because he didn't know much about this stuff. It was designed by other people in Congress that are total pros that are bought off by the insurance companies. And the problem we'll have with this is we'll get no Democrat votes, even though it should be very bad very bad for them if they don't. But maybe you'll get some. You'll call some of your friends, fellas, and Bob, you'll call some of your friends over on the other side. I don't know how they can reject it. It's just so popular. It's so compelling. So Obamacare was designed to make insurance companies rich with taxpayer subsidies, and I want that extra money straight to the health savings accounts for you. And you can choose your own health care. You go out and negotiate your own health care. It makes people entrepreneurs, mini entrepreneurs. They'll pick the health care that's best for them because it's so different. A young person, they need health care for different reasons, and an old person doesn't need certain things that a young person needs, and vice versa. To further reduce insurance premiums, my plan ends the giant kickbacks to insurance brokers and corporate middlemen. We're getting rid of the middlemen. How long have you heard doctors, all these doctors over there, look so smart. They're all brilliant people. I assume you're brilliant, otherwise you wouldn't be here, right? I assume we have the best. Do we have the best of the doctors? I would imagine, right? Hey, how cool is the White House? Okay? They're always in operating rooms. I wouldn't want to be in an I don't like operating rooms, but they do. But how cool is the White House, right? The coolest place on earth. And this is where it all begins. This is where we came up with a little concept about a place called Venezuela. How did that work out? And this is going to be the same thing in terms of its precision. Its importance is so big, it's going to work just like that. The one is Venezuela was so amazing, but I equate that to other things because we can do other things like that. It doesn't always have to be a Minnesota where everything is corrupt, where they have health care centers that nobody shows up and somebody's making millions of dollars, where they have daycare centers where there are no kids. It's a scam. It's a big scam. It's like a horrible thing. We have a country that was great. We have a country that's now great again. It's really come a long way. Make America Great Again is almost going to be obsolete because our country is very close to, we were going to keep America great. We may have to switch to keep America great. But I don't know. There's something about MAGA. We should never change it. Susie said, don't change. We like MAGA. Everybody likes MAGA. So we want to make this precision, just like a Venezuela, just like the attack on the Iran nuclear weapons, which wiped that out, just like all of the other things we do, they're precision. We want to make it the opposite of Minnesota, California, and all these places that are so badly run. So to further reduce insurance premiums, my plan ends the giant kickbacks to those insurance brokers and corporate middlemen that you've been hearing about for so long. It also funds the so-called cost-sharing reduction program to bring down the cost of the most common plans on the exchanges by more than 15%. And next, the great health care plan mandates unprecedented accountability and transparency from insurance companies and all health care providers. We want transparency. You're not allowed to ask a doctor how much is it going to cost. You're going to have your heart ripped out, and you're not allowed to negotiate. This is a giant scam. It's, in certain ways, look, nothing can compare to most favored nations. But when you give yourself the right to negotiate, you're not allowed to even ask how much it costs. You're supposed to go into a hospital and get operated on. Then they send you a bill and you have to file for bankruptcy. I'm not going to let that happen. So we're going to have insurance companies and healthcare providers going to have great, and hospitals, great transparency. The word transparency is a very important word. So they can't get away with ripping you off any longer. It requires insurance companies to make it easy for you to compare plans. You got to be able to compare plans. You can't do that now. You're not allowed to do that. It's not even believable. I tell you what, I used to sit before I was a politician home, and I used to say, how is that possible? Things happen that, I guess it's just the forces of nature, the forces of power, and you end up with very, very badly treated people, and they won't stand for it. But these forces are going to release an earthquake of reduced price health care. You're going to have massively reduced costs. This is no longer we're going to cut it by the famous 1/8 of a point. You're going to have massively reduced health care, and it's going to be massively better. You're going to have great health care at a much lower price, which is the two things. We want great health care and we want low price. You're going to have great health care at low price. Now you have terrible health care at a high price. You have horrible, horrible Obamacare health care. Like everything else he did, it was crap. It was a horrible plan. It was from day one and should have never been approved. It was a very sad night that night when there was a thumb raised. Most importantly, will require any hospital or insurer who accepts Medicare or Medicaid to prominently post all prices. You're going to post your prices at their place of business. Something they don't have to do, something they're not even allowed to do. We'll have the maximum price transparency, and the cost will come down just by that, not even talking about favored nations. The price will come down. So just in conclusion, I'm calling on Congress to pass this framework into law so that we can get immediate relief to the American people, including rural America. And I hope to get Democrat votes. They know, they saw it. I know a lot of Democrats. And they say that plan is unbelievable. Are you going to vote? Well, I'm going to try. They have tremendous pressure on them. Vote no. Vote no. We have a couple of Republicans. Thomas Massey always votes no. He's like, something wrong with the guy. If you have any clinical psychiatrists in there, maybe go check out his mind. But he always votes no. He's a very bad person. He's a very bad Republican, bad American when you always vote no. Just vote no. Do you approve? No. You know, there's not a thing you can say to him either, Lola. Look, Lola wants to be nice. He likes to get along with everybody. I don't. But they vote no. But so I don't know. You know, you have some people, they're very, I call him Rand Paul Jr. Rand Paul always votes. I don't know why he votes no, but I guess he thinks it's good politics. I got him elected twice. If I didn't endorse him, he wouldn't have been elected. But he doesn't reciprocate, and I guess that's okay. But I want to hear now, if I could, from Dr. Oz, and then we're going to have Dan Sullivan say a few words, and Rob and Mike, and Governor, you're going to say a few words, and we appreciate you being here very much. You're doing a fantastic job. I just want to leave by saying that this is the biggest thing to ever happen to healthcare in our country. It will not be covered that way by the fake news, and that's a sad thing. It will probably not be voted positively by the Democrats, and that's a sad thing. They all know how good it is. I think we can make health care into a Republican issue because the Republicans are going to be close to unanimous on this. It should be unanimous. Maybe we will be unanimous, but it'll be close. But we have a small majority. We probably need a little bit of help from the Democrats. So whatever we can do, we're going to do it. It's the biggest thing to happen to health care, maybe from the beginning. So, Oz, would you take it away, please? Thank you very much.
Mr. President. Mr. President, thank you for standing up for American health care. And I just want to underline this fundamentally important issue. We need Congress to help craft the Great America Health Care Plan. And the Great Health Care Plan will work. It's a brilliantly conceived framework. And as it comes to the American people, they understand that they'll want it. And it should represent the analogous situation, similar to what you did so brilliantly last spring with the Working Families Tax Cut legislation that the President mentioned, has created the Rural Health Transformation Fund, which is why we're here today. I want to put a little bit of texture around why this is such an important issue, because the Rural Health Transformation Fund is the largest investment ever in American history in our rural communities. Yeah. 50% increase in the amount of money that Medicaid, which Secretary Kennedy and I regulate, into our rural communities, $50 billion. You can do the math. It's $1 billion per state, and that's an important factor because it got them competing. There are 60 million rural Americans, and these folks do not have access to the same care that's available in urban and suburban America. Their life expectancy, if they're in a vulnerable situation, is 9 years shorter, because your zip code actually is your destiny. It determines how long you're going to live, and we can make a dent in this because the high rates of chronic disease and other ailments that plague our rural areas are often driven because they don't have access to care. That's going to change because of the Sentinel legislation. And again, it's similar teams, the same leadership, same president, same Congress that passed the Working Families Tax Cut legislation, which is incredibly popular around the country and will make the great health care plan successful as well. From the day the legislation was signed to create this wonderful fund, this transformational fund, the team at CMS, which is under Secretary Kennedy, began working. And they're here today. Steph Carlton, outstanding Chief of Staff, Alina Chekai, and Emily Chan. That day started working. It was July the 4th, by the way, on the specific vision for the program. How do you actually get the money out the door in 6 months? The president was insistent, did not want the money in Washington. So we began working closely to make sure that we'd use the money not as a Band-Aid, but to empower those closest to the challenges that rural patients face. And who are those people, the 50 people who know rural health care the best? The governors. They wanted the money out of Washington into the governor's hands, and that was done in a remarkable way. The governors thought big. We have one here from Nebraska who was actually the first to start working on community engagement, which is part of that legislation as well. But we have to right-size health care in rural America, and that's an important phrase. All 50 states submitted amazing ideas to transform rural health care in ways that should have been done decades ago. The CMS team awarded each team their portion of the $50 billion investment precisely with the same precision that we took Venezuela leadership, convicted individual, and with Iran as well, the same precision on time before the end of the year, and got it out of Washington into the states. Now I want to take a step back and do a little thought experiment, Mr. President, if you want to do this. If you, and God forbid this happened, had turned your head the other way in Butler, Pennsylvania, it wouldn't have been an ear injury. Now, I've been to Butler. I'm from Pennsylvania. Butler General Hospital is a good hospital. They don't have neurosurgery there. If you have an injury to the head, you have a golden hour to get cared for. You were taken to Butler General Hospital. Because the injury, thankfully, was not as lethal as it was designed to be, it wasn't a problem. But if you'd had a head injury, you could have had your life saved. But without a neurosurgeon, and there is no neurosurgeon at Butler General Hospital, unfortunately, you wouldn't have an option because Pittsburgh is a far, far ride away. That's the closest metropolitan area where there are lots of neurosurgeons. But with this bill, this legislation rather, this funding of $50 billion, Pennsylvania got its share. And they're going to be able to build telemedicine hookups, even telerobotic surgery, that would allow an injured individual in a car accident or any other reason that is a head injury in Butler General and rural hospitals across the country to be able to access the best care our nation has to offer so rural America will not suffer. That's the promise of what this money offers to our nation. It's not just paying the bills, it's not just picking up the pieces, it's actually transforming using technology we have widely available in urban America, the way we save lives in rural America. Each state competed aggressively because for $1 billion, Mr. President, you'll fight pretty hard. And they gave us brilliant ideas that they're talking with each other about. So we're actually creating teams that now across state lines will connect because they're all Americans and they base their advances on several pillars. Secretary Kennedy can talk about MAHA because there's MAHA elements to this as well, but very precisely sustainable access. We asked states, how can we bring top care closer, like in the thought experiment I gave you for Butler General. In Pennsylvania and North Carolina, there are regional spoke models, and hub and spoke means you've got a big hospital in the city and they adopt or work closely with some rural hospitals to solve the challenges of fragmented care. And that actually works. You share administrative back office work, you group purchase your stuff, you save money, you exchange medical records. Alabama has no OBGYNs in many of their counties. So they're doing something pretty cool. They're actually having robots do ultrasounds on these pregnant moms. So we can actually get those images back to the big center so we know if the child has a problem and we know if that mother's at risk. We have one of the highest maternal mortality rates in the world, in the country with the best medicine in the world. It's often stated, people ask, does healthcare stink in America? Well, they don't like it. Would you leave America to get healthcare elsewhere? Nobody leaves. We have the best healthcare if you can get to it. We don't want rural America left behind anymore. As an aside, by the way, we've talked about the most favored nation drug pricing. One of the first companies and areas we used most favored nation drug pricing is fertility drugs. That's why we're going to have so many Trump babies, because we've dropped dramatically the most expensive part of the fertility space. And so America no longer will pay so many times more, in that case it was 10 times more, for the same fertility drugs that they're available for moms who want to get pregnant in Europe. I want to thank Terry, who's here as a nurse practitioner, Andrew, who's a doctor, West Virginia, New Mexico. They're representatives of the workforce in rural America. But there are only 2 of them here representative because we don't have enough people working in rural America. It's a big challenge. So Delaware is creating its own medical school, their first ever medical school in a rural part of the state. So that can get more local talent that will stay local in those parts of Delaware. Michigan is launching the High School to Healthcare Pipeline Grant Program. They want to take kids out of high school in Michigan, local rural communities, and get them into the system. Get them trained as nurses, because they'll stay home because they're from those communities, and they'll save lives for decades there. These are the types of programs that can get our rural communities and economies up to high gear and keep it that way long after this 5-year funding is done. And finally, tech innovation. Rural communities would benefit the most from high-tech advances, like we just discussed, as possibly if there was a head trauma case. Many states want to partner with our CMS data interoperability network. It was created by Amy Gleason, who spearheaded so much of the technology transformation in our government. It's going to support the President's pledge to provide transparency that he mentioned as part of the great health care plan. And Congress can ensure these are all available for decades to come if we can get this legislation through. As in the tech innovation forefront, just to give you a couple examples, Texas and Hawaii are making targeted investments in statewide telehealth, so everybody has telehealth. The best doctors for the best knowledge available where you are. We'll meet you where you are. If you're a vet and depressed and you're thinking of taking your life, we'll be there. Just let us know you're in trouble and we'll help. Alaska wants to deploy, and I'm going to hand it to Senator Sullivan in a second, wants to deploy unmanned pharmaceutical distribution kiosks and drones that will deliver medications, because in the North Slope of Alaska, you can't get there this time of year. So these technologies, they exist. Why are we using them in Midtown Manhattan? We should use them in rural Alaska. This administration is committed to collaborating with all 50 states, all 50, red and blue, all 50 states, to carry out bold plans to tackle the challenges that local communities face. We're not pouring funds blindly, however, into a broken system. We're going to carefully, precisely, as the President said, target this investment. With healthcare fund running rampant, and I was in Minnesota this week, Mr. President, it's worse than we've heard, but Minnesota, pardon the pun, is just the tip of the iceberg. California is the varsity team when it comes to fraud, waste, and abuse. We're not going to let that happen. We want transparency for this $50 billion investment. We owe it to Capitol Hill. We owe it to this President, and we want accountability to be a top priority. For that reason, we've created an Office of Rural Health Transformation at CMS for long-term oversight. The office, led by Alina, check guide Alina again, was one of the people who helped create this program in the forefront, will guide, she was in the first administration, Mr. President. She's going to guide states in implementing their rural health transformation plans, coordinate all the federal and state partnerships, making sure there's appropriate oversight. In addition, every single state is going to have a dedicated project officer. We will be there with you. We're going to help you. Please engage us. You've got lots of lives at risk. It's a true state-federal partnership, unbelievable, extraordinary milestone for health care. Your zip code will no longer dictate whether you have excellent health care. Your zip code will no longer be your destiny. It's not going to dictate your life expectancy. Mr. President, I cannot thank you enough for the leadership that it took to get this $50 billion investment in rural health care. They don't make a lot of noise. They just want to get the job done. You stood up for them in Congress. God bless you for making this possible. Please do it again. Please do it again for the great health care plan. Let me hand it to Dan Sullivan, who's a spectacular member of the Senate, and obviously Alaska, they're pretty rural.
Thank you, Dr. Oz. And Mr. President, I am very honored to be here. This is a really exciting day. I want to thank you, sir, and your team. Worked really closely with Dr. Oz, Secretary Kennedy, many others. You know, this is a great example of how Congress, working closely with your administration, can achieve historic things. This is historic for our rural health care, certainly in the Working Families Tax Cuts Act. You combine it with what you were talking about, sir, in terms of drug price reductions for all Americans. So these are two things that are happening right now in our historic, and I agree 100% with you, Mr. President, hasn't got a lot of press, even though it is historic. It's going to really impact people in rural America, especially my state, this fund that I want to talk about. But what you've done on the drug pricing is even...
Ben, will you get Lisa Murkowski to vote for it?
She voted for it.
No, are you going to get her to vote for the... great, big, beautiful health care bill that we're doing.
When we get that, I think MFN drug pricing, I bet
No,
every
but are you gonna get her to
member
vote
of
for it?
Congress votes on that.
Are you going to get her to vote for it?
We'll work on it, sir. We'll work on it. So let me actually talk a little bit about the context of what's going on in Alaska and how this relates to it. You know, after 4 years of being locked up and shut down by the previous administration, we are on the cusp of achieving some huge goals in my state that we've been working on for decades. We have this huge resource development boom going on the North Slope of Alaska. I was with a bunch of the Inupiat Alaska Native people who live up there. They are so excited about what's happening there. We are, as you know, Mr. President, building icebreakers. We're home porting some of those in Alaska. We have huge historic infrastructure and economic and national security investments happening. In particular, the gas line that you have championed so much, the big LNG project. All of these things are happening. It's really exciting. By the way, all of these issues I just talked about, all of those were in the Working Families Tax Cuts Act, so there's a lot of excitement. But, Mr. President, in addition to a strong economy, the thousands of jobs that these projects are going to have, we have to have a strong healthcare system in every state. And rural Alaska, as you mentioned, as Dr. Oz mentioned, has often, almost always been an afterthought when it comes to investing in healthcare in America. And that's not happening anymore after the Working Families Tax Cuts Act. As you said, Mr. President, as Dr. Oz said, this is the biggest investment in rural health care in American history. $50 billion, the award the great state of Alaska was able to get working with Dr. Oz, and the parameters of the bill was about $1.4 billion over 5 years to transform our health care system. So that's really exciting, but here's the big deal. This is not just about money. This bill isn't just about money. The reason it's so impactful is that it's focused on letting states and governors design the system that they need. Alaska has many unique healthcare challenges, Mr. President, as you know, but for decades, the mentality in Washington, D.C. is this approach to one size fits all. D.C. tells every state, here's how you have to do it, and it never works. It never works. It certainly doesn't work in my state. I'll just give you one example, the federal match on Medicaid. Our state typically has the lowest match in the country, even though we have the highest health care costs and highest delivery costs in the country. The one size fits all doesn't work. This bill is different. This bill that we wrote with your administration is all about allowing states to design a system that works for them with CMS guidance. And this will be a generational opportunity for every state to bring health care closer to home, to make it more responsive to the people who live in that state, and make it more affordable. I'll just end with this, Mr. President. Like I said, a lot of excitement. We got Governor Dunleavy, who sends his greetings, was hosting the stakeholders in Alaska who are going to be applying for these funds, working with CMS in our state. Over the last couple of days, we have over 300 people coming to these meetings on how to use this transformation fund to better health care in Alaska. And this is going to help my constituents, it's going to help every American, and it is really exciting. And I want to thank, again, you, Mr. President, and your team.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much. We're going to have to go very fast. We're going to have to go we are way behind schedule, and I have a couple of meetings that are very important. Nothing more important than this, but let's go. Come on, Bob. Rob?
Fire round.
Please.
Mr. President, thank you very much for having me here today. And I represent northeastern Pennsylvania. Your governor from Scranton, Pennsylvania, so never had the opportunity to meet. But I inherited a very similar problem. But before I was even sworn into office, I had two hospitals, Moses Taylor and Regional in Scranton, that were imminently facing closure. Right. And it's been, and working with Dr. Oz, Administrator Oz, and the CMS team has been absolutely incredible on so many levels. And thank you again for intervening and shepherding us through that process. But when you're looking at at Pennsylvania, we're going to receive over $193 million. In 5 years, it'll be over $1 billion for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And when you think about northeastern Pennsylvania, clinics and regional hospitals, rural hospitals are the backbones of our communities. So making a targeted investment that is not just going to Band-Aid over poor operational procedures, it's going to actually transform rural healthcare. That's what we are so excited about. Pike County in my district is the largest growing county in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania where there's not a hospital. The nearest commute to a hospital is over 55 minutes away. So these are going to be funds that will be so imperative. The unprecedented investment is going to be incredible, and thank you for having me up here and being a part of this journey.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a great opportunity to be here with you and your team. Dr. Oz has been a tremendous asset. The $50 billion commitment to rural health transformation is critical. New York State is going to see about $212 million in the first year, which is vital for workforce development, access to care, primary, behavioral, maternal, emergency, telemedicine, et cetera. How were we able to do it? Because we rooted out waste, fraud, and abuse in the system. Democrats will just say we cut $1 trillion in Medicaid. That's not what we did. We said you need to be eligible. You need to be a citizen. You need to work if you are able-bodied without dependent children. We reined in the provider tax and state-directed payments, which have exploded over years. And we are taking this money, not only preserving Medicaid for the IDD community, our seniors, our children, our single mothers, but we're investing it in rural health. When you look at Obamacare, health insurance premiums have risen 96% since Obamacare took effect. Insurance revenues up 2,000%. Mr. President, you are 1,000% correct that the insurance companies are the problem. They wrote Obamacare. It's to their benefit, and the American people are being screwed. And so we can get a bipartisan agreement on what you are trying to do. When it comes to lowering drug prices, I will tell you, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies is in my district in Westchester County. I met with them in 2024 and I said, what would you do to lower drug prices? And the response was, go after the European price controls. You are spot on taking on the price controls that have been put in place. Most favored nation is the single best thing we can do to lower prescription drug prices here in America. The pharmaceutical companies will tell you that privately. And that is the fundamental fact. We need to go after PBM reform. Associated health care plans, we put that on the floor. Every Democrat voted against it, every Republican for it. Those would reduce costs by 11% because businesses, small businesses, would be able to pool together and purchase health care plans at a lower rate. We need to go after the PBMs and make sure that insurance companies are not owning providers and owning PBMs. That is what is driving up the cost of health care in this country. You've talked about IVF. I've been a big champion on this. We need to make sure the insurance companies cover it. I also have a tax bill to provide tax incentives to Americans, and what you have done to lower IVF costs on the drugs is critical. And you are 1,000% correct on expanding HSAs. I fundamentally believe that we can address the issues with Obamacare, make sure that the American people have access to care at a lower rate. We can get a bipartisan agreement to address the EPTC with expansion of HSAs so that the money goes to the people and not the insurance companies. We are committed to working to get this done, and I thank you for your leadership.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. President, gigantic thank you, and thank you for your incredible leadership. Your courage gives me more courage to say it the way it is. We're working very hard in Nebraska to run government like a business. This investment into rural America, which, by the way, in all of Nebraska, you poll 85%. I don't know what the hell's wrong with the other 15, but your 85 is a pretty good number. I think, be very, very brief. This plan will allow us to do common sense, pragmatic investments in rural Nebraska, and they will be sustainable. We will make sure that we don't need another dollar after 5 years. We are working on simple things like food. Real food is good medicine. We're working on making sure that all of our veterans, Nebraska is 500 miles long, 250 miles wide, no longer are veterans going to have to drive to Omaha to get care. We're going to take care of our veterans at home. Investments in technology so we can educate our children in rural Nebraska to provide health care are really, really important issues. And I think that the other is we've developed what we call 6 Regions, 1 Nebraska, and that will focus and take advantage of those. So we're working on what we have and then being able to use these resources to also help us with mental health and drug care as well. So we're incredibly grateful. Nebraska, we work hard. We're about faith, family, hard work, the American dream, and we don't ask for much help in rural Nebraska. So we're really grateful for this investment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. 1 minute.
How about 30 seconds? How about 30 seconds, sir? As a small town kid from Glen Rose, Texas, population 1,200 where I grew up, what you are doing today changes everything. And on behalf of our farmers and our ranchers in rural America, it is a new day and we're so grateful. The final thing I'll say is I think about Abraham Lincoln, who also sat in this room, and I think about other presidents throughout American history. And you think about how the fundamental course of American history has changed in certain pivot points throughout history. I think about you as the peace president. 8 wars solved, more coming. I think about you as the security president, a border that is secure for the first time and more than any time in American history. I think about you as the prosperity president. We talk about, Kevin, wages going up.
We'll give her more than 1 minute. In fact,
oh no, I'm almost done.
she can speak as long as she wants.
I'm almost done. The prosperity president and what's happening. Think about you as the affordability president. Everything is coming down. Inflation is coming down. The cost of groceries is coming down, fuel, housing, etc. And sir, today, in the last 2 weeks, you will go down in history as the greatest president for the health of this country in history. Think about our new dietary guidelines from Bobby Kennedy and I, but with your leadership, putting real food back in the middle of our health care conversation. Whole milk for healthy kids with those dairy farmers 2 days ago. We were in Pennsylvania talking about it yesterday. And today, putting the patient and the doctor back in charge of health care with great leaders like Governor Pillen. God bless you, your leadership, and all of our leaders. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. It's been a great day. And Terry and Andrew, thank you. Thank you very much for being here. I hear you're just outstanding people and have really helped. We appreciate it. You want to say something?
Thank you, President Trump, and I would just echo everything that's been said here. Thank you very much for what you're doing. I'm from the northwest corner of New Mexico. We also work with the Navajo Nation.
Right.
And so we have a lot of rural areas in our state and in our county. I'm also a county commissioner. So I take as being a nurse practitioner, a county commissioner, with a heavy weight in order to see this happen. And it will help produce accessibility, which is a huge thing. People have to drive for miles in order to see a health care provider, workforce, quality care, and sustainability for our hospitals. That's what we're looking at. We meet next week in Santa Fe with our legislators. And so we're going to be addressing the licensure compact as well.
And they've got to clean up their elections in New Mexico.
We're working.
Because those elections are so corrupt, it's incredible. If they clean it up, we win by a lot, but they are really corrupt elections. So I think if you want to do this, you have to tell them to start working on that. It's unbelievably one of the more corrupt states in terms of that. But you uncorrupted, so I appreciate you being here.
Well, the
Terry.
Northwest Corner loves you.
I know. I know.
Thank you.
I know we have great love in New Mexico, but it's the elections are so corrupt. Not much you can do about it. We have that with numerous states. Thank you very much. Andrew, thank you very much. You have anything to say?
Mr. President, thank you for having me here today. It's an honor to be here to represent my community. I'm from Northwest Georgia. I grew up in West Virginia. To represent my colleagues and my profession, it's truly an honor. This is so important to our patients, to put the physician and the patient back together and take everything else out of the middle. I practice in cardiology. Having efficient, effective, high-quality care is so important, and time is of the essence, and patients need to be able to have close proximity to their doctors to get the care that they deserve. Quality of care shouldn't matter about the zip code. We should be able to do what we are best at and take care of our patients on an equal playing field, and this certainly helps that. I greatly appreciate all that you've done for the American people. You are an inspiration to us. You make us believe no problem is too big to solve. I mean, you are a representative of that. And I thank you for your leadership. Thank you for this opportunity to be here. And thank you for putting healthcare at the forefront. It's so important to every patient and every family that we take care of.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Great job. Great job you both do. Amazing. I've heard unbelievable things. And doctors in particular, thank you very much for being here. We very much appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. It's a big story. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. An excellent roundtable with county officials and United States senators, congressmen, and members of the cabinet there for health reforms that will really change the way people are purchasing not only insurance, but their access to these life-saving medications, also hospital stays, to an entire industry that needs to be reformed. And thank you to Dr. Mehmet Oz and Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr., Secretary Brooke Rollins at USDA, all working so closely together on all this to really make America healthy again, as President Trump hosting that Rural Health Roundtable. And always good to see Senator Dan Sullivan from the great state of Alaska as well, there with other leaders throughout our Congress and within the cabinet and into rural America, like the great state of Nebraska. Please tune in this afternoon. It'll be a 3:15 start time with the great Matthew Alvarez for some afternoon coverage. And be sure to write into us your thoughts on not only divisional weekend for the NFL, but the college football playoff, the national championship on Monday night, January 19th. President Trump will be in attendance. It's 11:25 on the East Coast, getting close to 8:30 all the way on the West Coast. Thank you for joining us this morning. For all my colleagues here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, God bless you and yours. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you again on Monday, unless there's some great breaking news over the weekend.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First news. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door.